Roman airships, vast constructions of alchemically treated wood and bronze, patrol the skies above the Rhine frontier, their crews scanning for any unusual barbarian movements with powerful optic lenses. Down in the sun-baked arenas of Carthago, Nova gladiatorial contests now feature genetically modified beasts from the newly discovered southern continent, thrilling crowds who place bets using electronic denarii. Far to the east, the Great Library of Alexandria, never burned, holds scrolls detailing atomic theory and steam-driven automata, knowledge shared with Roman engineers across the unified imperium. The emperor himself addresses the Senate not from a marble throne but via a shimmering, life-sized projection beamed from his private villa in Baiae, discussing the latest reports from the Martian exploratory mission. Number 7. The Aethelred Commonwealth. Imagine a Britain where Roman sandals never quite left the soil, but where the spirit of Boudica found a different way to thrive. This is the Aethelred Commonwealth, a curious and sturdy power nestled in the northern islands. When Roman legions solidified their grip on continental Europe, preventing the chaotic fragmentation that marked another timeline, Britain found itself in a unique position. It was too far to be entirely assimilated like Gaul, yet too valuable to be ignored. The old Celtic tribes and the later Anglo-Saxon settlers, under constant managed Roman influence, didn't spend centuries battling each other and Viking raiders. Instead, they slowly coalesced. Commonwealth isn't a kingdom in the old sense, nor a republic quite like the Roman ideal. It's a peculiar blend led by a high steward, an office that evolved from powerful Romano-British chieftains and Saxon kings. This leader is advised by a witan, or council, filled with representatives from various shires and mercantile guilds. Their strength? The sea and sheep. Lots and lots of sheep. Aethelred wool is prized across the Roman world, finer and more durable than any other. Its trade managed by canny merchants from Londinium, Augusta, and Ibericum. Their ships, while not as massive as Roman grain carriers, or as heavily armed as imperial war galleys, are swift and numerous. They control the North Sea fisheries and trade routes, bringing amber from the Baltic and furs from even further afield, often acting as middlemen for powers less inclined to deal directly with Rome. Culturally, they speak a tongue that blends Latin with Germanic and Celtic roots, a sing-song language that Roman officials often find charmingly rustic. They adopted Christianity, but their version has a distinctly local flavor with ancient forest spirits, subtly repurposed as saints and holy wells still drawing pilgrims. Militarily, they maintain a fierce coastal defense force and well-trained local militias, known as Herdsmen Extraordinaris. While they wouldn't dream of challenging the full might of Roman legions on land, their mastery of the choppy northern waters makes any direct Roman naval intervention a costly proposition. Rome, for its part, largely views the Commonwealth as a useful, if sometimes grumpy, buffer state and trading partner. Aethelred envoys are a common sight in Rome, often advocating for better trade terms or complaining about Roman fishing fleets straying too far north. They pay tribute, of course, a sea gift rather than a tax, maintaining a fiction of independence that suits both sides. Their greatest contribution to the wider world, perhaps their stubborn pragmatism and their surprisingly complex poetry which speaks of mists, ancient kings, and the ever-present sea. Number 6. The Federation of Thule. North of the Roman Empire's Rhine and Danube frontiers, where icy winds sweep across dark forests and jagged fjords, lies the Federation of Thule. Had Rome collapsed, these lands might have birthed waves of seafaring raiders. But with the empire's enduring presence, the peoples of Scandia and the northern Germanic territories found a different path. Unity driven by trade and a shared desire to remain independent of the Mediterranean superpower. The Federation isn't a single nation, but a league of city-states and tribal councils, from Bergen in the west to Novgorod in the east, which in this timeline maintains stronger ties to its Norse founders. Their power stems from resources and ingenuity. Thule is rich in timber, furs, high-grade, iron ore, and amber, all highly sought after in the Roman world. But they are not mere suppliers of raw materials. The artisans of Thule are master shipbuilders and metallurgists. Their longships, evolved from ancient designs, are not just raiding vessels, but sturdy merchant cobs and exploratory craft capable of navigating icy northern waters where Roman galleys fear to sail. They pioneered advanced wind and watermill technologies, powering sawmills, forges, and grinding operations on an almost industrial scale centuries before other regions. Some whisper they even harnessed geothermal power from volcanic springs in their far western islands. Culturally, the Thulians are a stoic and pragmatic people. While some southern areas adopted a form of Arian Christianity that spread north before being supplanted in Rome, many in the heartlands of Thule maintain a reverence for the old gods, albeit in a more philosophical and less sacrificial manner than their ancestors. Their councils and assemblies, known as things, are models of direct democracy, though often dominated by powerful merchant families and jarls. They have a runic script, but many Thulian scholars are also fluent in Latin, essential for trade with the Imperium. The Federation's relationship with Rome is complex. They are primary trading partners with Roman merchants, flocking to Thulian ports like Kopang and Birka. Thulian mercenaries, renowned for their ferocity and discipline, often serve as auxiliaries in Roman legions, particularly in colder climates. However, there's also an underlying tension. Rome views Thule as a useful but semi-barbaric northern fringe. Thule, in turn, is fiercely protective of its autonomy and resents Roman arrogance. There have been occasional amber wars or herring conflicts when trade disputes boiled over, but both sides know a full-scale war would be ruinous. Thule maintains a surprisingly effective defensive network of coastal forts and a swift fleet capable of harassing Roman shipping lanes in the North Sea. Their true strength, however, lies in their adaptability and their mastery of the harsh northern environment, a realm where even Roman might hesitate. Number 5. The Khaganate of the Resplendent Steppe. Beyond Rome's eastern frontiers, across the vast grasslands that stretch from the Black Sea to the distant mountains of Altai, roams the Khaganate of the Resplendent Steppe. This isn't a single monolithic empire like those of Attila or Genghis Khan from another history. The enduring strength of Rome prevented any one steppe confederation from overwhelming its neighbors for too long. Instead, the Khaganate is a shifting mosaic of Turkic, Mongolic, and other nomadic peoples, bound together by a Nedab Khagan, a council of clan chieftains, and a shared equestrian culture that is second to none. Their power is born from the horse and the bow. Steppe warriors can cover vast distances with incredible speed, appearing as if from nowhere to raid border settlements or ambush trade caravans that stray from protected routes. Their composite bows, fired from horseback, are legendary. But they are not just raiders. The Khaganate controls vital sections of the overland trade routes that bypass direct Roman or Persian control, growing wealthy from tariffs on silk, spices, and other exotic goods. Over centuries of interaction with Rome and Persia, they have also adopted and adapted certain technologies. Their chieftains reside not just in felt yurts, but in fortified encampments, some sporting Roman-style siege engines captured or copied. Their administration, while decentralized, uses a modified script learned from Sogdian merchants to keep track of tribute and trade. Culturally, the Khaganate is a vibrant melting pot. Tengrism, The worship of the sky god remains prevalent, but Nestorian Christianity, Manichaeism, and even strains of Buddhism carried along the trade routes have found adherents. Storytellers are revered, preserving epic poems of heroic ancestors and legendary battles against the settled empires. Their metalwork, particularly gold and bronze, is intricate and highly prized, often depicting scenes of hunting and warfare. The relationship with Rome is one of perpetual low-intensity conflict, punctuated by periods of uneasy alliance. Roman emperors have constructed vast defensive networks along the eastern frontier, the Limes Orientalis, a series of forts, walls, and signal towers far more advanced than Hadrian's Wall. Yet, the Khaganate always finds ways to probe for weaknesses. Sometimes Rome pays them tribute, euphemistically called subsidies, for border peace, to keep them from raiding or to hire their warriors to fight against other enemies, such as the Persians. At other times, massive Roman punitive expeditions march into the steppes, often with limited long-term success, as the nomads simply melt away before returning when the legions withdraw. The Khaganate serves as a constant reminder to Rome that not all the world can be easily tamed or assimilated, a wild and unpredictable force on its borders. Number 4. The Solarian Concordat. To the south and east of the Roman Imperium, in the sun-scorched lands of Arabia and across the Persian plateau, arose a power forged in religious fervor and mercantile acumen, the Solarian Concordat. The rise of the faith of the Sun Unconquered, Sol Invictus being a popular deity even within parts of Rome itself, took a different turn here, as a monarch prophet emerged from the deserts of Arabia, preaching a monotheistic message that emphasized divine unity, justice, and submission to a singular celestial will. Its initial spread faced an incredibly powerful and stable Roman Empire. The message resonated deeply, but the vast military and administrative machine of Rome prevented the kind of rapid territorial expansion seen in other timelines. Instead, this new faith, which came to be known as Solarianism, spread more like a spiritual awakening, first through the trade routes of the Arabian Peninsula, then into Persia, which had long chafed under Roman influence, and was seeking a new unifying identity after the decline of its old imperial faiths. Concordat isn't a single monolithic empire in the Roman sense, but rather a federation of emirates, sultanates, and merchant republics, all bound by the Solarian creed and governed by councils of religious scholars and powerful trading magnates. Their spiritual and symbolic head is the luminary, a figure of immense religious authority based in the holy city of Marib. Power of the Solarian Concordat lies in three things: faith, trade, and sand. The unwavering devotion of its followers makes their armies formidable, particularly their light cavalry and cameleers, who are masters of desert warfare. They control the lucrative incense routes of southern Arabia, the maritime trade through the Red Sea and Persian Gulf, and key overland routes into Central Asia and India that Rome does not fully dominate. Their knowledge of desert survival, navigation, and resource management is unparalleled. Solarian scholars have also made significant advancements in mathematics, astronomy, crucial for desert navigation and determining prayer times, medicine, and optics, building upon ancient Mesopotamian and Persian knowledge. The relationship with Rome is one of intense rivalry, both ideological and economic, but also of grudging codependency. Rome, with its own evolving Christian faith, or perhaps a more syncretic imperial cult, views Solarianism as a dangerous theological challenge. There have been several major solar wars across the desert frontiers of Syria, Egypt, and Mesopotamia, conflicts characterized by brutal guerrilla warfare and massive logistical challenges for the Roman legions. However, trade between the two powers has never entirely ceased. Roman demand for spices, incense, silks, and exotic goods from the east, many of which pass through Solarian lands, is insatiable. Solarian merchants, in turn, desire Roman manufactured goods, wine, and metals. Thus, a tense but persistent state of armed truce, punctuated by proxy conflicts and economic competition, defines their interaction. The Solarian Concordat stands as a testament to the power of faith to shape civilizations, a vibrant and resilient counterweight to Roman dominance in the East. Number 3. The Aryavartan Mandala. Far beyond the easternmost Roman outposts and the lands of the Solarian Concordat lies the Aryavartan Mandala, the great wheel of kingdoms that constitutes the Indian subcontinent. In a world where Rome never fell, the trajectory of India's history also shifted. While Alexander's influence was ancient history even for the early Roman Empire, the continued stability of the West and its different patterns of trade and interaction meant that the subcontinent was spared some of the more disruptive waves of invasion that characterized other timelines. Instead, indigenous empires found the space and stability to grow and consolidate. The Aryavartan Mandala is not a single, centrally ruled empire in the style of Rome or China. It is a complex hierarchical system, a circle of states, where paramount power, the Maharaja, king of great kings, holds sway over numerous lesser kingdoms and principalities. This central authority, currently held by the resurgent Chalukya dynasty from their magnificent capital in Vatapi, maintains its dominance through a combination of military might, strategic alliances, matrimonial ties, and religious patronage. The system is flexible, allowing for regional autonomy while ensuring overall stability and a unified response to external threats. The power of the Mandala is immense and multifaceted. Its population is vast, providing an almost inexhaustible supply of manpower for its armies, which feature disciplined infantry, formidable cavalry, and the terrifying power of war elephants, armored and carrying archers or small cannons, a technology that trickled along trade routes and was adapted locally. The land is incredibly fertile, producing agricultural surpluses that support large urban centers and a complex society. India is also a treasure trove of natural resources: diamonds from Golconda, spices from the Malabar coast, fine textiles like cotton and silk, and exotic hardwoods. These goods are the lifeblood of a sprawling trade network that extends across the Indian Ocean, overland to Central Asia, and indirectly to the Roman world. Culturally, the Aryavartan Mandala is a kaleidoscope of faiths, languages, and traditions. Hinduism, in its myriad forms, provides a broad societal framework, with its epic tales, complex pantheon, and philosophical schools shaping daily life. Buddhism, while less dominant than in previous eras, still flourishes in certain regions, particularly in the East, and in monastic centers of learning. Jainism also maintains a significant presence. Sanskrit remains the language of scholarship and religion, but a host of vibrant regional languages are spoken by millions. Indian scholars have made profound contributions to mathematics, including the concept of zero, which eventually reached Rome, astronomy, medicine, and metallurgy, the famous wood steel. Rome and the Aryavartan Mandala are like two giants, aware of each other across a vast distance. Direct political interaction is rare, mostly limited to occasional embassies exchanging exotic gifts and letters filled with flowery praise. However, trade is constant and deeply able. Roman gold flows eastwards in exchange for Indian luxuries. Roman merchants are found in the bustling port cities of the Indian coast, though they rarely venture far inland. Similarly, Indian traders have established communities in Roman Egypt and the Persian Gulf. While never direct military rivals, there's a sense of mutual respect. Roman strategists know that any attempt to project power into India would be a fool's errand, and Indian rulers are content with their sphere of influence, seeing Rome as a distant but wealthy market for their goods. The mandala remains a self-contained world, rich in its own ancient traditions and immense power. Number 2. The Celestial Dragon Throne. On the far eastern edge of the Eurasian landmass, a civilization as ancient and proud as Rome itself continues its dynastic cycles under the rule of the Celestial Dragon Throne. In this timeline, we might call it the Han Tang Continuance, or the Song Ming Resurgent, signifying the enduring strength and adaptability of Chinese imperial power. The non-collapse of Rome had a subtle but profound impact here. While China was always a largely self-contained world, the existence of another massive, stable empire in the West altered trade dynamics, technological exchange, and geopolitical calculations. The power of the Celestial Dragon Throne is rooted in its vast, highly organized population, its sophisticated bureaucracy staffed by scholar officials selected through rigorous examinations, and its advanced technological base. For centuries, Chinese innovations have led the world. Papermaking, printing, both block and movable type, gunpowder, initially for fireworks, then for weapons, the compass and sophisticated silk looms. While Rome developed its own scientific and engineering marvels, the flow of ideas along the revitalized Silk Road, now featuring sections of paved highway and well-guarded caravanserais, partly maintained by Roman and Chinese, accord in Central Asia, became more of a two-way street than a trickle. The Emperor, the Son of Heaven, rules from a magnificent capital city, perhaps Chang'an or a greatly expanded Beijing, a metropolis of millions, with grand palaces, temples, and bustling marketplaces. His authority is absolute in theory, but in practice, he relies on a complex network of ministers, governors, and magistrates to administer the sprawling provinces. The imperial army is a colossal force with disciplined infantry, skilled archers, and a growing arsenal of gunpowder weapons, from hand cannons to massive bombards used in sieges. The Imperial Navy, with its enormous treasure junks, patrols the coasts and projects Chinese power into the South China Sea and the Indian Ocean, sometimes brushing against the trade networks of the Aryavartan Mandala and even occasionally distant Roman merchant fleets. Culturally, the empire is guided by Confucian principles of order, hierarchy, and filial piety, though Taoism and Buddhism, which arrived via the Silk Road and took on distinctly Chinese characteristics, also play significant roles in the spiritual life of the people. Art, poetry, calligraphy, and philosophy flourish under imperial patronage. Chinese engineers have perfected canal systems that link the major rivers, facilitating the transport of grain and goods across the empire. The relationship between the Celestial Dragon Throne and the Roman Imperium is one of the defining features of this alternate world. They are the two undisputed superpowers anchors of civilization, at opposite ends of Eurasia. They are too distant for direct, sustained military conflict, though their spheres of influence sometimes clash in Central Asia, leading to proxy wars fought by steppe allies or client kingdoms. For the most part, their interaction is characterized by vigorous trade. Roman glassware, wine, and gold are exchanged for Chinese silk, porcelain, and tea. Diplomatic missions are infrequent but grand affairs, laden with protocol and veiled assessments of each other's strength. Chinese scholars study Roman law and engineering with interest, while Roman philosophers marvel at Confucian ethics and Taoist mysticism. They are rivals, certainly, each viewing the other as a somewhat barbarian, but undeniably powerful entity. Yet, there's also a grudging respect, an understanding that they are the two pillars holding up the civilized world. The Great Western Sea Empire, Da Qin, and the Middle Kingdom, Sungo, observe each other warily and profitably across the vastness of the globe. Number 1. The Eternal Roman Imperium. And so we arrive at the pinnacle, The empire that never fell, the enduring heart of this reshaped world, the eternal Roman Imperium. Imagine a Rome that didn't crumble under internal strife and external pressures in its 5th century. Instead, it adapted, reformed, and continued to grow, not just in size, but in sophistication and power. This Rome is not a static relic of antiquity. It is a vibrant, evolving superpower that has shaped the destiny of the planet for over 2 millennia. The territory of the Imperium is staggering. It encompasses all of Europe, from the snowy forests of Hyperborea, Scandinavia, largely pacified or integrated, to the Pillars of Hercules. North Africa, from Mauritania to Aegyptus, remains a vital breadbasket and cultural hub. The Near East, including Syria, Judea, and Mesopotamia, is firmly under Roman administration, its ancient cities gleaming with Roman architecture and infrastructure. The Imperium didn't stop there. Following the pioneering voyages of Roman explorers who, equipped with advanced navigational tools derived from Alexandrian science, crossed the Atlantic centuries earlier than in another timeline, vast Roman colonies now flourish in the Nova Terra, the continents of Vespuccia, north and south. These provinces, like Nova Roma, Britannica Minor, and Hispania Ultima, send tribute, resources, and new ideas back to the heart of the empire. Roman trading posts and fortified settlements also dot the coasts of sub-Saharan Africa and even the fringes of the Indian Ocean. The military might of the eternal Roman Imperium is unparalleled. The legions are still the backbone of its power, but they are no longer just sword and spear infantry. Clad in advanced segmented armor made of new alloys, they wield sophisticated repeating crossbows, shoulder-fired gunpowder projectors, and grenades. Roman engineers have developed steam-powered war machines, armored land vehicles for difficult terrain, and even primitive airships, vast helium-filled dirigibles used for reconnaissance and strategic bombing. The Roman Navy commands the Mediterranean, Mare Nostrum, our sea, more truly than ever, the Atlantic, and has flotillas in the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Their ships are large, metal-reinforced vessels, some powered by enormous steam turbines. In Stratstrat is a Roman forte. The legendary Roman roads now span continents, supplemented by high-speed aqueducts that also carry communication cables, a form of optical telegraphy. The great cities of the empire, Rome itself, Constantinople, still a vital eastern capital, Alexandria, Carthage, Londinium, Augusta, Lutetia, Perseum are marvels of urban planning, Bolextame-driven planning, Astrans Destimisium are marvels of urban planning. Bostand public buildings where thaumaturgically amsfimes, broads, news, and imperial desteminer. Latin remains the lingua franca of administration, law, and scholarship, but a multitude of regional languages and cultures thrive under the Pax Romana, which has endured for centuries. The emperor, often from a dynasty that has proven its worth or selected through a complex process involving the Senate and the military, wields immense power. However, the Roman Senate, though its composition has evolved to include representatives from distant provinces and even colonial territories, remains a significant political body, debating laws, overseeing finances, and acting as a check on imperial authority. Roman law, continuously refined and updated, is the basis for justice across half the world. Science and philosophy flourish in universities and libraries across the Imperium, building on Greco-Roman foundations without the interruption of a Dark Age. The Great Library of Alexandria, expanded many times, contains knowledge that would astound other timelines, including detailed atomic theory, early genetics, and advanced mechanics. Culturally, the Imperium is a rich tapestry. Christianity, in a form deeply intertwined with imperial authority, perhaps a unified church under the emperor's patronage, avoiding major schisms, is the dominant religion, but pockets of philosophical paganism, Mithraism, and other ancient faiths persist, tolerated as long as they do not challenge imperial rule or public order. Spectacles continue, though gladiatorial combat has largely been replaced by grand chariot races, mock naval battles in flooded arenas, and displays of exotic beasts and technologies from across the Imperium. The eternal Roman Imperium is not without its challenges. Managing such a vast and diverse territory requires constant vigilance. Rival powers like the celestial dragon throne and the Solarian Concordat test its borders and its influence. Internal factions within the Senate or the military sometimes vie for power. Colonial provinces and Nova Terra, growing in strength and developing their own distinct identities, occasionally agitate for greater autonomy. Yet, through it all, the idea of Rome, of order, law, civilization, and power endures. It is the central sun around which much of the world revolves, a colossus of history that shaped an entirely different destiny for humanity.